Hi, everyone, and welcome to Filmmaking with AI from Concept to Final Cut. My name is Graham Tallman, and I'm genuinely excited you're here. You're stepping into this course at the perfect moment. Right now, we're experiencing the biggest creative shift since digital filmmaking, a moment where the tools of production, storytelling, and visual creation are more accessible than ever before. What once required a full crew, extensive gear, months of planning, and major studio backing, you can now begin with AI tools, your imagination, and the phone you already own. But before we dive in, here's a quick sense of who I am and why I'm teaching this. I've been a filmmaker and screenwriter for over 25 years. I graduated from the American Film Institute, directed and produced several feature films, and my shorts have screened at festivals including Toronto and AFI Fest, winning awards along the way. I've worked with many of the major studios, and storytelling has been the center of my entire career. And I say this with absolute clarity. AI is not replacing filmmakers. AI is expanding what filmmakers can do. AI doesn't diminish the human, AI extends the human. It gives you access to an art department, a concept team, a cinematographer, a storyboard artist, a composer, all working alongside you at the speed of thought. And in this course, I'm going to show you exactly how to use that power responsibly, creatively, and effectively. Whether you're a filmmaker, writer, content creator, or someone just curious about the future of storytelling, by the end of this course, you'll know how to take an idea, any idea, and transform it into a complete short film using today's most powerful AI tools. Let's get started. In this course, you're going to learn the entire AI filmmaking pipeline step by step. Here's what you'll walk away with. Concept development. How to use AI models like Claude to brainstorm ideas, themes, and loglines. Story and script writing. You'll use my story model to develop a structure that works for 30 to 90-second films, then write a complete script. Visual development. Using Nano Banana through Gemini's Filmmaker Suite Flow, you'll create character designs, style frames, cinematography references, shot lists, and world-building imagery. AI shot creation. You'll learn how to generate cinematic, continuous, and consistent shots using VO through Flow. Editing. We'll bring everything together in tools like DaVinci Resolve, where we'll assemble your story. And sound design. We'll score your film with Suno, add AI sound effects using ElevenLabs, and export a completed film. Throughout the course, I'll reference a short film I created using this exact workflow called Max vs. Bunny, based on a true story about my puppy Maxwell and his vendetta against a plush toy. You may even hear him barking in the background during some lessons. If you want to see this finished film, it lives on TikTok and Instagram as The Heroic Life of Max. I'm not showing it to impress you. I'm showing it to prove what's possible with a clear idea, emotional intent, and the right tools. By the time you finish this course, you won't just understand AI filmmaking, you'll have created a finished 30 to 90-second short film of your own. Here's how you'll get the most out of this course. Number one, follow the modules in order. Each step builds on the previous one, from concept to script to visuals to shots to edit to final film. Number two, practice as you go. Pause the videos and try the tools yourself. AI filmmaking is experiential. You'll learn by doing, not just watching. Number three, use the downloadable templates. You'll find prompt packs, story development sheets, a shot list template, an editing checklist, and more. These will dramatically speed up your workflow. Number four, don't chase perfection. Your first AI shots may be messy. That's normal. AI filmmaking is iterative, and I'll show you how to refine your results step by step. And number five, complete the final film project. By the end, you'll create your own short AI film. This is where everything clicks and you leave with a polished piece you can share. Before we begin, I want to share a quick philosophy that guides everything you'll learn here. For decades, filmmaking has been defined by limitations: money, gear, locations, access, time, crew size. AI removes so many of those constraints, and what's left is the purest form of creativity: your imagination, your choices, your storytelling voice. But let me be clear, AI does not replace human creativity. It accelerates it, it multiplies it, it expands what's possible. I've said this often: AI will not take your job. People who use AI will take your job. And I want you to be those people. I want you fluent, confident, and empowered in this new landscape, not overwhelmed by it. If you're ready, let's begin Module 1, AI Concept Development. Welcome to Module 1, AI Concept Development. This is where your film truly begins. Before AI, developing a film concept could take weeks or even months. Now, with the right creative direction from you and the right tool, especially Claude, which you see here, you can generate meaningful, emotionally grounded story concepts in minutes without sacrificing your voice. You can absolutely use ChatGPT or another LLM for brainstorming, but for creative writing, emotional resonance, and character consistency, I strongly recommend Anthropic's Claude. Claude excels at understanding nuance, maintaining tone, connecting emotional beats, honoring structure, and preserving character psychology. Think of Claude as your writer's room, a collaborative creative partner, not a replacement for you. If you don't already have a free Claude account, pause here and sign up now. I've included a link on the worksheet for Module 1 entitled Concept Development. In screenwriting, the first step to crafting your story is creating your logline. A logline is a tight, clear, 1 to 2 sentence summary of your story. At its core, it answers 3 questions. Who is the story about? What do they want? And what's stopping them from getting it? That's it. Now, in terms of using AI, here's a tip. AI makes world building fast and expansive, but that doesn't mean your story should be. The most powerful short films are intimate, specific, and emotionally precise. Smaller is almost always better. Think micro moments, not macro stories. Examples of great micro moments might be someone deciding whether to send a text, a person letting go of something, a robot discovering a tiny plant, a student wondering if they should raise their hand in class, a simple gesture that changes emotional truth. Small, intimate human moments hit harder than big, sweeping narratives. And by the end of this lesson, you should have a handful of promising loglines worth exploring further. Before prompting Claude, gather your creative ingredients on the worksheet provided. These can be themes, genres, moods, images that inspire you, character traits, locations, emotional questions you want to explore, moments that you remember from your life, or anything buzzing around in your imagination. Here's the key principle. The more ingredients you give Claude, the more personal and tailored the results become. Don't censor yourself. Messy, chaotic, stream of consciousness input is not only allowed, it's encouraged. Claude is exceptional at organizing creative chaos. And keep in mind these 3 qualities of great ultra short films. Number 1, minimal locations. 1 location is ideal, 2 at most. Every additional location adds time, cost, and complexity. 2, minimal characters. 1 protagonist, 1 supporting character at most. More characters dilute emotional focus, and you just don't have time to develop them. And number 3, emotion over cool shots. A short film is a feeling, not a demo reel. Let emotions dictate the visuals, not the other way around. The more personal and detailed your ingredients, the better Claude's ideas will be. Fill out the worksheet now and have fun with it. At the bottom of the worksheet, there's a template for a good prompt. Paste that prompt into Claude and fill in your details. You're an award-winning short filmmaker. You are tasked with creating 10 script concepts for 30 to 90-second short vignettes involving blank. Each concept should be intimate and emotionally resonant, feasible to create with AI animation with limited locations, focused on character expression and body language, structured with a clear setup, conflict, and resolution, and delivering a gentle lesson or emotional truth by the end. Then press enter. Claude will return a range of ideas. Lyrical, surreal, dramatic, comedic, experimental. At this stage, don't judge. Your only job is to notice what pulls at your imagination. Trust that instinct and try it now. In the next lesson, I'll show you a real example of how messy it can be. At this point, you've probably generated a bunch of log lines. Some feel interesting, some feel half-formed, some might feel too small or too big. So I wanted to show you how I came up with my little short. The idea for Max vs. Bunny didn't start as a film concept. It started as a bunch of messy thoughts. So you'll see I added a bit of information here about Max's personality, and then a lot of scenarios that I thought might make a good short. But actually nowhere in here was there a mention of a bunny. There was only this little mention of a plush toy. So I pressed enter and outputted a number of really great log lines, some that I might use for episode 2, 3, or 4, but none of which I really landed on this time. And this is where most people stop. They assume that the first batch is the ceiling and that AI is not good enough and it doesn't work. But instead of abandoning the process, I iterated. So I entered a second prompt, and this prompt was a little more specific. I took out some of the extraneous locations and characters to make it simple. And this is really where the pivot happened. I asked, maybe he has a grand imagination and we see him in his perspective at the Olympics or a stadium and the crowd cheers, but in reality, he's just playing catch. This is the pivot. I stopped asking for situations and started asking for the subjective experience of Max's imagination versus reality. And once I introduced this idea, his inner epic world versus the mundane reality, everything snapped into focus. That contrast is the movie. Here's something I want to be very clear about. The bunny sumo match didn't come from the first prompt. It didn't even come from the second, which suggested a kaiju battle. It came later, once the emotional structure was already in place. Bunny became the physical expression of imagination and play for Max. This idea won because it had one character, one emotional change, one clean punchline, and one gentle emotional truth. And I think it's important to note that AI didn't invent this film. AI helped me recognize it like a writing partner would. The winning idea didn't come from a smarter prompt. It came from just playing and having fun and wondering about Max. So if your first 10 ideas aren't quite there, good. That means you're circling the winning idea. Just have fun and let your imagination run wild. Welcome to Module 2, Scriptwriting with AI, where, as you'll see from my office, we're headed deeper into our sci-fi future. By the end of this module, you'll have a complete screenplay based on the logline you refined in Module 1. Before we write, we need to talk about story structure, specifically the structure that works beautifully for ultra-short films. You may be familiar with larger frameworks like Hero's Journey or Save the Cat. These are excellent systems for longer storytelling, and in my advanced course, we'll dive deeper into those and my own expanded structure for 5 to 15-minute short films. But for this course, and for the film you're making right now, we're keeping it simple, tight, and cinematic. So we'll use a minimal, powerful structure designed specifically for ultra-short films. This is the blueprint you'll follow. Number 1, the setup. Main character wants something. A simple need, longing, desire, or flaw. Number 2, the catalyst. Something interrupts their world. This introduces the obstacle. Number 3, the struggle. They try to overcome the obstacle. They use different tactics to better their situation. This creates the emotional arc. Number 4, the twist or resolution. Either they get what they want or they don't, but they learn a lesson that is emotionally meaningful. This is the perfect spine for a 30 to 90-second film. If you wanted to see this structure in action with flawless execution, I would recommend watching For the Birds from Pixar, which is available on YouTube. Now, paste your logline into Claude and use the prompt provided on the worksheet entitled Story and Scriptwriting. The prompt should read, expand this logline into a short film outline using this structure: setup, catalyst, struggle, twist, resolution. Keep the story small, intimate, visually expressive, and able to fit within 30 to 90 seconds. Claude will produce a clean outline, which acts as our first draft. And in the next module, we'll use Claude in one of the most valuable ways. One of the most valuable tools of having an AI writing assistant is revisions and editing. You can ask Claude to refine your script in innumerable ways. Here are some examples that I use most frequently. Number 1, clarity. You can ask Claude to identify any confusing or unclear moments. Number 2, character depth. You can fill in all the details you know about the character, their personality, their flaw, their backstory, and ask Claude to strengthen the characters. Number 3, pacing. You can prompt shorten action lines by 20% while keeping visuals strong. Number 4, visual storytelling. Prompt replace exposition with visual cues. And 5, subtext, which I use quite a bit for longer projects. Make the dialogue less on the nose and more subtle, subtextual, or subversive. This polish turns your script from AI generated into cinematic writing. The bottom line is, if you are unhappy with your story in any way, just tell that to Claude. Chances are it'll be able to help you refine and revise. For the next lecture, I'll show you my example. So let's return to my Max versus Bunny battle. As I mentioned in the last section, Claude had outputted that Max should be in a kaiju battle, which is totally cool and I may use again in the future. But for this version, I tweaked it subtly and kept refining it until we got to a sumo match. Then, Entering into Claude the simple prompt template for the outline, we came out with a full script. So you see here, we have the setup where they're in the ring. We've got the catalyst where they start to fight, the struggle where it looks like Max is done for, but then he defeats the bunny. And of course, in the end, it's revealed that it's all in his imagination. At this point, we were ready to go. Welcome to Module 3, Visual Development. At this point, you should have a refined logline, a complete 1 to 3 page script, and a clear emotional arc. Now we're going to take the next major step in the filmmaking process. We're going to translate your script into cinematic visuals. This is the same step real directors take before stepping onto set. For AI filmmaking, visual development is even more critical because your prompts are your cinematographer. If you don't define the look of your film, AI will invent one for you, and it's rarely the one you intended. In this module, you'll learn how to extract visual information from your script, generate cohesive style references, explore tone, lighting, composition, and mood, begin thinking like a director, and build a visual style pack you'll use in Module 4 to generate shots. This becomes your film's visual identity. Let's start with Nano Banana. Nano Banana is Google Gemini's image generator. It functions as your concept artist, illustrator, mood board generator, and pre-visualization engine. You can access Nano Banana directly through Google Gemini, and I've included a link on the worksheet entitled Visual Development. However, for filmmaking purposes, you'll get more control by using Nano Banana inside Google Labs' Flow. Flow is Google's AI filmmaking tool that lets you generate and assemble cinematic shots and scenes using visual references from Nano Banana, and as you can tell from this message, it's quite popular. At the time of this recording, Flow offers a 1-month free trial, and after that it costs $20 a month. Because we'll also be generating video inside Flow later in the course, I strongly recommend keeping all your visual work in one place. I've also included a link to Flow on the worksheet. If you haven't already, pause here and sign up for the free trial. The next step will be to design your characters. The first thing you want to do is enter anything you know about the characters into Flow. That can include personality traits, backstory, emotional tone, physical appearance, and any details you developed earlier using Claude. Then press enter. And this is where you get to truly explore. Try different styles: anime, Pixar, photorealistic, kawaii, sci-fi, film noir, whatever you can imagine. You're not chasing perfection here. You're discovering which aesthetic best matches the emotional core of your story. Then you want to create a clean character model. Once you find the character image that feels right, separate it from extraneous details in the background by using the prompt in the visual development worksheet that goes like this. Take this image and create a full-body studio photograph of this character standing in a neutral pose against a clean, neutral backdrop. This gives you a clean master character reference. Optional but recommended, generate front, profile, and rear views and save each angle. These will come in handy later. Then, create a dedicated folder for each character. Congrats! You've just created your visual anchors for the entire film. Now we're going to design your locations. Repeat the same process for each main location. Copy the location descriptions from your script, add any visual detail that wasn't on the page, and generate images in Flow. An important note, your locations must stylistically match your characters. If your characters are animated, your environment should be animated. If your characters are photorealistic, your location should be too. Consistency is key. Save each location in its own folder, and we'll move on to the next lecture. So what I wanted to do in this section is show my own iterative trial and error process. Initially, I tried all these different styles. You'll see here kawaii style and this kind of interesting style here, but none of which I was really landing on. So what I ended up doing is uploading a real picture of Maxwell, this dapper gentleman here, and I started to get a more photorealistic outputs. At first, I really liked that, and I actually landed on this one originally. So I took that and put it into the neutral backdrop like that. And then from there, I started to get the profile shots like so. And I actually started the process with this style. But when I got to the sumo ring, I just felt like the photorealism wasn't quite working and I needed a more Pixar style. That's normal. Visual development is about testing, rejecting, refining, and eventually landing on something cohesive. What I will stress here is that it's much better and less expensive to do all this experimenting with still images before we move into the video image stage. Now we'll build a shot list with Claude. A shot list is a detailed plan that breaks a script down into individual camera shots needed to tell the story visually. For example, a close up, a wide shot, etc. In traditional filmmaking, a shot list is created by the director and cinematographer before production. It guides the shoot, saves time on set, and ensures that every necessary moment is captured. In AI filmmaking, a shot list serves the same purpose, but instead of guiding a camera crew, it guides your AI prompts. If you have ideas for your shot list, create that now on your own. If you don't, you can have Claude assist you. Either way, in order to help with organizing your shot list, you can use the worksheet entitled Shot List Template. There you will also find a cheat sheet that outlines the definitions of the most commonly used shots, as well as their emotional impact on the scene. In Claude, paste the prompt from your visual development worksheet that reads, create a shot list for my short film approximately 30 to 90 seconds long. Prioritize emotional storytelling, simple staging, and micro moments. Keep it feasible for AI generation. Then paste your script into Claude, or if you're still in the same chat as I am here, just press enter. What you'll see is your shot list pop up. Add, subtract, and refine until it feels right. Then copy each shot that you like and paste it into Flow for a visual reference of that shot. There is a more advanced prompt that generates 9 shots at once that I really love. It's a bit technical, so I've included it on the worksheet. Just copy and paste the prompt into Flow and add the number of reference photos you will use where it's highlighted in yellow on the worksheet. Then include a brief synopsis of your story, also highlighted in yellow on the worksheet. Then add the elements of the scene, including location and character, and press enter. What pops out is often miraculous. When you find a frame you love, use the final prompt on the visual development worksheet, which reads, please extract and output only the image in the bottom right corner. One limitation I should mention, these grids often output horizontally. If you're working with a vertical aspect ratio, when you use the extract prompt, select portrait aspect ratio before you output. A word of caution here, you will hit limitations with AI. That's part of the process. The key is to not get discouraged. Here are some powerful prompt adjustments that I use to iterate on an image to capture my vision as closely as possible. Sizing. You can ask Flow to zoom in 2x on an image, or zoom out 2x, or even more. Time shifts. You can ask to move forward in the story 30 microseconds or 1 second to capture a continuous action. You can add remove elements from a frame. You can use perspective shifts to take a wide shot, for example, and transform it into an over the shoulder or a low angle or a 3/4 profile. And you can use lighting changes and ask for cinematic lighting or shallow depth of field, which I did for my sumo match. The key is patience and creative problem solving. I want to show you one more example here because I believe this is a critical step in your process and will save you many credits in the video generation stage. One technique I use often is to create the first and final frame that will bookmark your shot. That way, I have more control over what will be created. So I want to show you step by step how I construct a first and final frame. If you come over here, this is very close to what I wanted for the final frame. However, his eyes were a little bit more cartoony than in some other shots in which he was more photorealistic, and there's a lot of noise up here in the sky that I wanted to clean up. So I started from scratch. I got my character reference shot and my location reference shot, and I said, place this dog in this room, and pressed enter, and what came out was pretty good. Then I needed to build the other elements of the scene. So I started to put the white stuffing and torn bits of blue bunny plushie toy all over the room, and I got myself a really good first frame. Then I needed the final frame in which I wanted a man to be standing in the foreground on the left. I tried to enter that a few times and it didn't quite work out how I wanted. So just through trial and error, I was able to finally come up with an image here that I really liked. Then I needed to add one more element, which was I needed Maxwell to look up at him guiltily, which I gave the prompt for and landed on my final shot. So to give you a sense of what this would look like in the finished product, we have our first frame here. Boom. And our last frame there, and that's all I will need for the final movie. So once again, spending more time at these steps will save you time and money in the long run. Welcome to Module 4, AI Video Generation, where, as you can see, we'll be lifting off into the stratosphere. From the last three modules, you now have a complete script, a visual style pack, character and location style references, keyframe images, and a complete shot list. That means you have something many filmmakers never get until late in the process, a clear creative vision. Now we're going to turn that vision into actual shots you can use in your film. AI video generators today, especially Flow, which we'll be using, can produce stunning cinematic shots with controlled motion, consistent characters, precise lighting, complex environments, stylized looks, and natural camera movement. But you must guide them like a director guiding a crew. Your visual style pack from Module 3 is your script for the AI. Let's walk through the workflow step by step. Before you start generating shots with AI, you need to think like an editor. Not in terms of coverage for safety, but in terms of precision for impact. A classic way to build a scene, whether you're shooting traditional or generating with AI, follows a simple visual progression. You begin wide, you move closer, and you end intimate. Traditionally, that looks like this. You start with a master or establishing shot. This is your wide shot. It defines the location, the spatial relationships between the characters, and the emotional tone of the scene. Then you cut in for the medium shots, often character singles or over the shoulders. This is where the performance and interaction live. As tensions build, you move closer into medium close-ups, where emotion becomes harder to hide. And finally, at the peak of the scene, you land on close-ups or extreme close-ups. This is where your meaning crystallizes. Of course, there are endless variations to this, but this structure gives you a reliable foundation, especially when working with AI, where every shot costs intention. For short films, I recommend aiming for something like this: one establishing shot, 1 to 2 character shots, 2 to 3 struggle shots, 1 twist shot, and 1 final emotional image. That's it. Short films don't thrive on quantity, they thrive on precision. Every generated shot should earn its place. Now, let's start generating your shots in Flow. In filmmaking terms, you're moving from pre-production to production. Every decision here affects cost, consistency, and quality. Step 1 is the aspect ratio. So going into the settings drop-down menu over here, you'll see a bunch of options. Just like we discussed in the previous module, you should already have chosen an aspect ratio, landscape, or portrait. The key thing here is consistency. Your video shots should match the aspect ratio of the still images you generated earlier. If your frames don't match, you'll immediately feel it in the edit. Decide once, commit to it, and carry it through the entire project. Step 2, outputs per prompt. Unlike still images, video generation is expensive. You'll immediately notice how many credits it takes to generate even a single video shot. A quick word of caution: credits disappear fast. Because of that, I almost always generate 1 video per prompt, then iterate from there if needed. This gives you the control without burning through your entire budget. Think of video generation as surgical, not exploratory. Step 3, VO fast versus quality. The first rule here is always use the latest available version. At the time of this recording, that's VO 3.1, which includes synchronized sound. You'll notice 2 main options: VO 3.1 fast, which is lower cost, and VO 3.1 quality, which is significantly higher cost. Fast requires far fewer credits, while quality can be 5 times more expensive. Surprisingly, I've often gotten better results using fast, but this can vary by project style and subject matter. So my recommendation: test both early, decide what works for your film, and stick with it. Step 4, frames to video. In Flow, you'll see several generation modes: text to video, frames to video, ingredients to video, and create image. Here's how to think about them. Text to video lets you describe a scene from scratch. But since we've already created strong visual references, you'll rarely need this. Ingredients to video builds from key elements, but we've effectively already done this work by creating frames in the previous module. Create image is what you used earlier to generate stills. So the mode we'll focus on almost exclusively is frames to video. This gives you the most control and the most consistency. With frames to video, you have 2 main options. You can use the first frame, which tells AI exactly where to start, the image, and you can use first frame and last frame, which defines both the start and the finish for your shot. If you know where you want your shot to end, using both frames can be incredibly powerful. Personally, I use first frame most of the time, and occasionally I'll add a last frame when I want to lock in a specific emotion or visual beat. Now that we have our settings in order, we're ready to begin creating our shots. So here's an example where I used the first and last frame and then added the prompt, "The brown character jumps up and rips the arm from the blue character as we dolly out over the cheering crowd." Now, the reason I use brown character here instead of multi-poo or dog is because I found it kept putting Maxwell on all four legs and I wanted him to be more anthropomorphic. And sometimes I would write anthropomorphic, but then it would do other weird things like turn him into an actual sumo wrestler. So through trial and error, I found that just calling them characters was the best option. And if you see the output here, it's close to what I ended up with, very close. There was still some iterations I needed to do, but got pretty close. Another tip, don't settle for your first output. Try 3 to 5 variations, different camera angles, different lighting, different emotional tone, different composition. Also, tools like Flow are improving dramatically at character consistency, but you can still help by including the character reference image that clearly shows their face, then add a prompt that I've included on the worksheet entitled AI Video Generation that goes, match the character's face, hair, silhouette, and emotional tone from the reference. Do not change the style of the image. Another option, which I use most often, is to make sure that I have first frames exactly how I want them in still image form. Then Flow has a clear model of the character design you want. Even then, you will have some difficulty with consistency. That's part of the process. Just keep iterating and you'll get what you want eventually. One of the biggest challenges in AI generated video is maintaining continuity, making one shot flow naturally into the next. In traditional filmmaking, this is solved through coverage. You shoot the same action from multiple angles with overlapping movement, giving the editor flexibility to cut seamlessly between them. AI doesn't work that way. You're often generating isolated shots rather than continuous performances, which is why most AI films today feel like montages or trailers. You're cutting from one strong image to the next without true continuity of action. That said, there are ways to work around this. One way is to use the scene builder tools, which you can access in 2 ways, either from the clip itself or in the top left corner of Flow. In your scene builder, if you click on the plus sign at the end of your timeline, you'll see 2 particularly useful features. Jump to lets you cut to the same moment from a different perspective, helping maintain visual consistency while changing angles. And extend allows you to continue a shot forward in time, creating the illusion of a single uninterrupted take, or a oneer. By clicking on the plus sign above the timeline, you'll see the Save Frame as Asset option. This lets you start your jump to or extend on whatever frame you want. These tools are especially useful when you want a sense of flow without fully restarting a shot. If your shots still aren't coming out the way you expect, here are a few more adjustments you can make. Number 1, you can experiment with the drop-down menus in Flow. If you click on the pen icon and edit your image or video, you'll see a drop-down menu. It can help you insert an element into a scene, remove an element from a scene, change your camera position, or add camera motion. You can also be more precise with your prompts. Avoid vague language. AI responds best to clarity, not poetry. You can reduce complexity. Limit each shot to one character, one action, one dominant emotion. Complexity multiplies failure. You can reintroduce your reference image. AI models drift easily. Reapplying your reference image often snaps the style back into place. You can adjust lighting cues. Lighting has a massive impact on realism and continuity. Small changes here can dramatically improve consistency. And finally, you can experiment with end frames, as I've mentioned before. Sometimes using an end frame that's noticeably different from the beginning frame produces unexpected and surprisingly effective results. Don't be afraid to test it. AI shot generation isn't about perfection. It's about control, illusion, and smart problem solving. And once you understand that, the tools start working for you instead of against you. Welcome to Module 5, Editing and Post-Production with AI. We are beaming in from our alien planet colony office for the moment where everything finally comes together. Your script, your visual style, your AI-generated shots, your sound design, and your music. This is where your project stops being pieces and starts becoming a film. I'll be demonstrating everything using the industry standard DaVinci Resolve because it's free, it's incredibly powerful, and it has excellent color tools built in. That said, you do not need professional editing software to complete this course. Use whatever editor feels comfortable to you. Here are some other beginner-friendly options. iMovie for Mac, which is simple, clean, and intuitive. CapCut, which is shockingly powerful for how easy it is. Descript, which is text-based editing, great for AI-first workflows. And Adobe Express Video, which is straightforward drag-and-drop editing. The principles in this module apply to all of them. For the sake of my demonstrations and my preferred editor, we'll be using DaVinci Resolve. If you haven't already downloaded DaVinci, do that now. The link is in the worksheet entitled Editing and Post. Before we touch the timeline, let's get organized. No matter what editor you're using, start by creating folders on your computer. I recommend music, sound effects, and video files. Do this before importing anything. In editors like DaVinci Resolve, if you move files after importing them, the software won't be able to find them and your clips will go offline. A few minutes of organization here will save you a lot of frustration later. In DaVinci Resolve, you want to open up a new project and make sure that your media pool up in the left corner is selected as opposed to effects or index. And then you go to your folders, select them, and you simply drag and drop them into the master bin here, and that keeps them organized. And then you will have all the clips that you need in your bins. And that's pretty much all you need to get started. Now let's create a movie. This is where editing becomes storytelling. No matter what software you're using, the process is pretty much the same. So you take your clips up here from the master bin and you would drag them down onto the timeline. Then I'll take another clip and I'll put it back here. You want them to be able to click together like that. So you want to make sure that this magnet tool is selected. And then you start building your story. So for example, let's say that I have this character and this shot here. I want this to be the establishing. I want that to go first. I can just drag and drop it over here like that, put it down in its place, and I can either select in here and press delete or backspace, and that will bring the two together. Or of course I could just click it together like that once the magnet tool is selected. And then you start trimming to make these feel like continuous action. So there's really two ways to trim a clip. The first is you choose this razor icon here, and that will cut the clip like a razor. Then you go up here to the selector, you can delete that clip and then press backspace or delete. And of course your clips will come together. That's one way. And the other way is you go to the seam here where you see this slider tool appear, and you can slide the tool back to where it is that you would like the clip to stop. Press backspace or delete in between those two, and they're clicking together like that. I take the slider on this side and maybe I want it to go in like that right when they make contact. I will press delete to bring those two together and boom. Okay, it's already looking pretty good, but if I want to get into the nitty gritty here, you go up here to this slider tool with the plus and minus, and the bigger I make it, the more I can drag out the size of my clip on the timeline so that I can really get into the nitty gritty of making that work frame by frame. Boom. Okay, not bad. And I could tweak this all day long, essentially, just to make it just so. And that's essentially how you're going to be building your story. Needless to say, DaVinci Resolve can do a lot. We're not going to be able to cover everything here. If you want deeper techniques, YouTube has tutorials for literally every feature imaginable. But I thought I would show you a little bit of my process and some minor simple techniques I used. So I started with some atmospheric shots of the drummers and the audience here. Then I went to the extreme wide shot, into the wide shot, and into the closes and extreme closes. Textbook coverage to get us into the scene. And then I had the fight break out and finally a dolly out to end the scene. So along the way, there were some hopefully invisible techniques I used. For example, I made this bunny character zoom in for dramatic effect. So the way that you would achieve that is select the clip and you go up here to the top right corner to the inspector tool, and you'll see a whole bunch of different tools that you can use. You can change the speed, you can stabilize clips, you can crop clips, etc. In this case, I use the transform tool. So if I go to this arrow, it'll show you where I decided to start my zoom. I started it at 1.2, but I can slide that to whatever zoom I want. And I would choose, okay, I want the zoom to start here. I want it to start at 1.2. I will click that node to start. Then you'll see here that if I go to the end of the clip, I wanted it to end at 1.8 zoom. So I would click my second node, which would be my out point. Then the zoom starts and finishes at those points. Moving along here, you'll see that the seam of the shoulder originally was on the left shoulder. But if you look at this character's eyes, he's looking at the right shoulder. And so in order to make that feel continuous, I just flipped it. So I would, again, select that clip, go up here to Inspector, and there's this little flip button. Click on that, and boom. I've got something that feels a little bit more continuous to my scene. Moving along to where the imagination becomes the reality, you'll notice I used a cross dissolve in between these two clips here. And that's a very simple effect to achieve. You would just go onto your timeline, choose a seam in between two clips, right click on your mouse, and you can choose the size of your cross dissolve, how many frames you want it to be, and that would be there. And finally, everyone loves a fade out in the end, and that was done by this simple slider here. So it starts off like that. I just hover the mouse over top of it. It appears. I grab it, and I can make that fade out as long as I want it to be. But like I said, if you want to go deeper into the effects, YouTube really is your best friend here. Now we're ready to tackle sound. Sound is at least 50% of the emotional experience of your film. For this project, I used Suno to compose music with AI and ElevenLabs for AI-generated sound effects. Both links are in the worksheet entitled Editing and Post. You can set up your accounts now. Let's start with music. Once you've logged into Suno, you simply prompt the kind of music you want. You go over here to the Create tab, click on that, and then you have your prompt window here in the same way that you did for Claude or Flow, and you just enter all the descriptions you can think of the type of song that you want. For me, I started off with a heavy metal sound. Realized that wasn't quite the vibe I was going for, then went to a more traditional sumo sound. But I thought that was a little too zen for the intensity I was going for. Finally, I iterated until I arrived at this really cool drum beat. And that's what I ended up going with. Once you find your song, you simply go over here to the three dots, click on Download, and download MP3 audio to your music folder. Next, sound effects. For this, we'll be using ElevenLabs. Once logged in, you can view the side panel here, and you will see many options for finding or creating the sound you need. They offer text-to-speech, voice changer, music, and even dubbing. We're not covering voice here since newer video models like VO 3.1 already generate synchronized dialogue, but what we are using is sound effects. So you'll go over here to the Sound Effects tab and find the prompt window. There, you simply describe the sound you want. This could be a hit, a footstep, wind, room tone, a crowd, whatever. You can also choose to loop it. You can choose the duration of the sound and how much freedom the AI has to be creative. In my case, I added subtle bird ambience to avoid silence in the apartment, and I added a ripping sound when the shoulder of the bunny was torn. Then you choose the sound you like, download it as an MP3, place it in your sound effects folder, and drag and drop it into DaVinci. So let's break down how I built my sound design. It's very similar to the way that I assembled the image. Usually, the sound clip will be connected and in sync with the image, especially if you were generating your videos in Flow using VO 3.1 or later. In that case, you would just drag and drop one of your images onto the timeline and the audio follows. However, if you have new sounds or different things you want to add to the soundtrack, for example, a piece of music, then you would just drag and drop those onto the timeline and match it up with the part of the image that you wanted. You'll see here that I have 4 audio tracks. The amount of tracks that you use will be solely dependent on how much sound you want to layer into your project. So let's break them down one by one. I'll just make sure everything's muted over here. This is the mute track button, and we'll unmute them one by one to see what I was doing on each track. So on the first track here, we've got the drum beat and a lot of audience cheering, more audience cheering, lots of audience cheering, and a big exciting audience cheer. So this was pretty much what I was covering on the first track. You'll notice I was fading in and out of these sounds just to make it feel more seamless and less abrupt. Then we'll go down to the second track here. More audience cheering and more audience cheering. You see I was creating a little bit of a bridge here to make it feel less abrupt, where I was fading in and out of each of those tracks. We've got a hit, audience, explosion of audience. Yeah, I clearly wanted to have a lot of audience sounds and make that a rich sound to increase excitement. Okay, we'll go down to the third track here. Got our musical bit, got our stinger for that extreme close-up, another hit, and got the ripping noise that I created in ElevenLabs, as well as the birds chirping from ElevenLabs as well to make the apartment feel less empty. And last but not least, let's check out the final track where we got the cool soundtrack. Okay, and you'll notice here I was splicing in together different parts of the song in order to bring in beats at key moments. Boom. And that sort of covers why I did the 4 tracks. 2 more helpful tips for sound are how to separate the sound from the image and adjusting volume. So for example, if I wanted to separate this from these images here, I would go to lock track over here, and that would mean that the image will not move. And at that point, I can then take the sound that is corresponding with that image, I can move it, I can decrease it, or I can even delete it. Same could be said for the audio track. If you want the audio to stay, you would then click on that and you would be able to manipulate the video image. In terms of sound, what you do is you just hover your mouse over one of these audio clips and you'll see these 2 arrows appear. To decrease sound, you bring the arrows down. To increase sound, you move them up. So for me, that was enough to make the film feel rich and full in its sound design. The key, as always, is to have fun with it. Last but not least, we are ready for the final touches, which involves color correction. DaVinci Resolve excels at color, but we're going to keep this super simple. Notice here how I'm on the timeline view. Well, by going over to this color wheel, you will open up a whole world of possibilities. You can adjust exposure, color temperature, contrast, gain, basically anything you can imagine. Again, if you want to go deep down this rabbit hole, and the rabbit hole really does go deep, YouTube is an exceptional resource. But for me, Flow does a great job, except in one area. Sometimes the clips don't exactly match in intensity, color, or tone. So let me show you an easy quick fix for that. So if we go back here to the timeline, you'll see that this character has a nice, rich, colored, golden glow to him, whereas this color is a little bit more washed out. I know it's subtle, but these are the types of things that keep me up at night. So if I wanted to take these and match them, I would go back to the color wheel. I would select the clip that I want to change. I would press Shift and select the clip that I want to change it to. And on the second clip, I would right click and it opens up all of these possibilities. And we want to go down to shot match to this clip. If I click on that, boom. Did you see it? It became a little bit more washed out, just like the other clip. And that's it. Believe it or not, we are ready for the export. Congratulations, you made it to the end of the course. You've completed something extraordinary. You developed a story idea, you wrote a completed script, you built visual references, you generated cinematic shots, you edited your footage, you designed the soundtrack, and you exported a complete AI-made short film. Most people who want to make films never finish one. You did. And you did it using tools that cost a tiny fraction of traditional filmmaking. I've worked with film students who've spent anywhere from $1,000 to $50,000 to make a single short film. That covered casting, locations, insurance, permits, gear, crew, sets, food, transportation, special effects, sound design, and post-production. You just made a finished film for a fraction of that cost while still creating something cinematic, expressive, and personal. That's not a shortcut, that's a transformation. This is the new era of filmmaking, and you are a part of it. As you move forward, there's one idea I want to leave you with. The tools will change, the craft will not. AI filmmaking tools are evolving incredibly fast. In this course, we use tools like Claude for writing, Nano Banana for visual development, and Flow for AI video generation. 6 months from now, something new may outperform all of them. But that's not a problem, because once you understand the creative process, the tools become interchangeable. If you know how to shape an emotional moment, think visually, prompt with intention, and make directorial decisions, then you can move between tools with confidence. It's like photography. If you understand composition and light, you can use any camera. Now, once a film is finished, there's often a quiet question. Now what? Here's the truth. You don't owe the internet anything. But your film does deserve a way to be recognized. Films live in many places: your personal archive, a portfolio, a class community, a private link shared with friends, festivals, and online platforms. There is no single correct path. But wherever your film goes, it needs one simple thing: one image, one title, one moment that represents the work you've made. If you would like help with a prompt for either a poster or thumbnail, I've included that on the final worksheet entitled Final Film Project. Before we part, I want to say thank you. Thank you for trusting this process. Thank you for showing up creatively. And thank you for finishing something meaningful. If you feel comfortable, I invite you to share your work in the course community or Q&A section. You can share your finished film, a favorite frame, a poster or thumbnail, a prompt experiment, or simply what surprised you. You might inspire someone else, and you might discover how many people are quietly rooting for you. If this course helped you, if it made filmmaking feel more possible again, please consider leaving a review. Reviews help other students find the course and allow me to keep improving and expanding the curriculum. And finally, if you enjoyed this process and want to go deeper, longer scripts, richer characters, more complex worlds, I'll be releasing an advanced AI filmmaking course that builds on everything you've learned here. But for now, pause. You made a film. That alone puts you ahead of most people who dream about doing this. Keep experimenting, keep telling stories, and may your imagination guide you towards a more personal cinema, using AI as a tool, not as a replacement. I hope to see you in the next course.